or reject. National Assembly will this afternoon also proceed on the Committee of the Whole House to look into the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 21 of 2021, which was tabled by the leader, has just stepped in the chambers. He will be overseeing these sessions, the proceedings of this afternoon. And I will now hand you over to the live broadcast. My name is Kamche Menza. Welcome. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit and the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Good afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to charge. Amen. Well, honourable members, I wish to introduce to you a delegation. Honourable Rose Chesang, member. Honourable Chepkwon Rono, member. Honourable Clara Chepkemei, member.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I arise to read public petition number 047 of 2021, being representatives of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, Nairobi branch, and other concerned teachers across the country, draw the attention of the House to the following. That on 22nd September 2021, the Teacher Service Commission, TSC, rolled out the requirement of Article 232(1)(d) of the Constitution, that without consultation with teachers, the TSC committed teachers to personally meet the burden of paying a total of 6,000 for each module of the total of 180,000 for the entire program. That the Teacher Service Commission has not made public to the teachers of this country and other stakeholders in the education sector the consideration it based on in arriving at the above exorbitant cost per module. That it is in the public domain that teachers are underpaid. Most of them have stagnated at the same job group for a period varying between 10 and 20 years. That in unclear circumstances and notwithstanding the existence of reputable public universities countrywide, TSC selected only 4 education. That to achieve a well-coordinated and holistic approach, the TSC is not restrained from implementing the Teacher Profession Development Program. The rights of the teachers and stakeholders under Article 232(1)(d) of the Constitution stand the risk of being prejudiced. That matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray for intervention of this House to 1, cause the Teacher Service Commission to undertake public participation on TPD policy. 3, inquire into the circumstances under which Teacher Service Commission selected only 4 institutions, all in Nairobi region, to offer TPD program despite there being other reputable universities countrywide. 4, recommend to the Ministry of Education to take strengthening plan to shoulder the attendant cost of the training. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Allow for limited comments and clarifications. Member for Nyando.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Lately, I think from last week, Honorable Speaker, I've been receiving phone calls from teachers drawn from Nyando constituency, some of whom are asking me to provide them with monies so that they can attend this training. Honorable Speaker, my late father was a teacher, and unfortunately, before he passed on, he did advise me to go to become a teacher as a last resort. This was based on all the mistreatments that were perpetuated across the teaching fraternity then, and the same mistreatments have continued to date. Honorable Speaker, this is a unilateral decision that has been made by the Teacher Service Commission without necessarily looking at the costs that are to be passed over to the individual teachers. Honorable Speaker, people do in organizations carry out trainings and refresher courses, but that is usually at the cost of the attendant organization. For the first time, we are seeing an organization passing the training costs on to its employees. This is utterly unacceptable, Honorable Speaker. Our teachers, as has been ably alluded to by the Honorable Omboko Milemba, don't make much money, and to dispense of 6,000 shillings towards this training is in itself a mistreatment, Honorable Speaker, and we therefore ask you to apply brakes until all the necessary remedies are put in place for teachers to undertake this training. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Whether Teacher Service Commission looks at the pay slips of teachers, Mr. Speaker. Our teachers are underpaid. They are suffering. Some of them have taken loans. And then from nowhere, you come up with a policy that requires them again to still spend money on their improvement, which basically they are to be improved to offer service to the employer, Mr. Speaker. Most of us, even here, Mr. Speaker, members of parliament take refresher courses. We go for benchmarking, etc. It is funded through taxpayers' money. Why would we subject teachers to paying for their refresher courses? It doesn't make sense at all. And Mr. Speaker, I hope the chair of the committee, Florence, will take this matter very fast and deal with this issue before it goes out of hand. Finally, Mr. Speaker, again, I've also issue with how the universities were picked. Mr. Speaker, how on earth would you pick Riara at the expense of University of Nairobi, Moi University? Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense. And I'm not trying to look down upon that university, but Mount Kenya, Riara, even if I am given a choice to choose which university to go to for a refresher course, would I choose Mount Kenya, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Nominee 001.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I really support Honorable Omboko Milemba, who is actually a mwalimu. And for him to bring this particular petition is a move that is geared towards protecting the teachers. And I'm sure this House will protect the teachers because the teachers are suffering, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, no one nowadays will, in their wildest dream, want to be a teacher. In fact, nowadays, teaching profession is just by default. If you ask any child, Honorable Speaker, because I'll force them to go to refresher courses in which we have already agreed with the universities or schools they'll go to. Honorable Speaker, as Honorable Mbadi have said, how did they pick these 4 universities, Honorable Speaker? Some of them are private universities. Was there some kind of kickbacks, Honorable Speaker, that were applied by to TSC, Honorable Speaker? We must protect our teachers, Honorable Speaker, so I hope the Education Committee will protect our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for of Kenya and regulations. And secondly, it is distinguishable this House has the capacity to resolve this matter, which is touchy teachers of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kabuchai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to add a serious addition on this petition, Mr. Speaker, that in the first place, Mr. Speaker, if TSC thought that this is a very good idea, Mr. Speaker, it will have budgeted for it. We want to know, Mr. Speaker, even the procurement aspect of how they did the procedure they used to procure the 4 universities, Mr. Speaker, which procedure they follow. Last, Mr. Speaker, about this. Teachers have committed salaries, Mr. Speaker. Teachers, when you check at the payslip of every teacher, Mr. Speaker, you find that they are down. What will become? What punishment will be given to those who will not attend this one, Mr. Speaker, in case they don't pay? Mr. Speaker, this is why we are saying that we need the Teacher Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, to take care, because the consumer of this item called TB training profession, Mr. Speaker, is not the teacher himself. It is TSC on behalf of the learner, Mr. Speaker. So a teacher must not be punished or be told to train on his behalf as if he's going to consume it himself, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this petition, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Member for Kimini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I want to quote the words of the former late President Nelson Mandela on matters of education. And this is what he said, Mr. Speaker, that the most powerful weapon to use to change the world is actually education. And it is true, Mr. Speaker, education has been changing. There are many dynamics that are going on. When you look at many other professional bodies, whether it's LSK, whether it's for doctors, they are encouraged to be going for continuous development because the environment is dynamic. And TSC, it was such a wonderful idea, Mr. Speaker, to come up with this idea. But the challenge is how this is going to be implemented. We salute them for the proposal, but the implementation, Mr. Speaker, and in many practices, and the international labor practices, Mr. Speaker, when an employer wants to improve efficiency, of course you take your staff for that development. So we humbly request TSC if they can look for a way of funding, because the teachers are already, Mr. Speaker, under stress. It's a wonderful idea, but we want it to go through the public participation. And if possible, Mr. Speaker, we look for a framework of funding. Otherwise, I support the petition. I thank you.
Member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to stand and support the petition by Honorable Mboko Milemba. Honorable Speaker, what I wanted to advise the committee when they are looking at this petition, I think it's important, especially when we are talking about this CPC. There's a lot of issues being said outside there, that this CPC program is only applicable in Finland, days that we take to dispense with the petition. If we can be able to do it maybe in 2 weeks or even 3 weeks' time, so that
urgent need of public participation, so that teachers can also have their input and they can say how best they can go about the development program. Mr. Speaker, also, teachers are just settling down from the national delocalization that is going on, Ministry of, under the Education Act, so that we are able to speak for them as we discuss the regulations. Also, they are able to participate when these regulations are being developed, and they know how best they are going to be trained continuously for their own development.
Institution in this country, very small delegated authority to develop this to these teachers, Honorable Speaker. So you cannot have a situation where you want to punish the people you have employed, the people whom you are unable to remunerate properly. So this House must rise up to the occasion, Honorable Speaker, and say no. And I will wish that the committee should first summon the Teacher Service Commission and tell them to stop implementing this directive until this matter is heard any time. Honorable Speaker, I support this petition.
Member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to join my colleagues in supporting this petition. And Mr. Speaker, the education sector in this country has been having very serious issues, and I think the impact will be felt several years to come. I join my colleagues to say that this program needs to be well thought out. On one side, Mr. Speaker, the issue of teachers having been compromised because no much time is actually being spared. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the universities, even in Nakuru, Mr. Speaker, we have enough universities. We cannot reiterate that more than has been done, Mr. Speaker. Let this thing be rethought out, Mr. Speaker. Let there be public participation. It's not a choice. Article 10 of the Constitution is very clear on it. Let these stakeholders be part of the program. Otherwise, it will not work, Mr. Speaker. And I join to support Omboko Milemba on this, that let us give enough timeline, enough framework to be able to implement this program, Mr. Speaker. I support.
The agendas that was tabled was that we wanted the Teacher Service Commission, even when it was going to manage matters education, it will be a commission that would take care of the welfare and interest of the teaching fraternity. So for us, it's quite shocking to see that TSC is asking teachers to pay for themselves so that they can then go for training. We would like, and in Thika and other areas, all counties have got institutions and universities, and that is what devolution was meant to be. Distribute some of these things so that there's equity and fairness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for
Under labor practices, it demands that an employer who got up 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, it will go up to 30 years. Somebody who is 50 years, what do you want to have far away? So that is the period where the family born, Honorable Speaker. Public participation, was public participation undertaken in terms of creation of...
Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, is the idea of cost. Why do you want to burden the teachers with the cost of attaining a professional development course so that they can be promoted? What that means is those teachers who are wealthy and have resources will get the promotion. Those that do not...
We have seen a lot of drama in the implementation.
As the lawyers who want to join the Kenya School of Law was given to one university called Riara, without procurement, without anything. Riara now came and added more courses. It's very difficult for anybody coming from out of the country to join Kenya School of Law even after having a master's degree, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are so many teachers' colleges in this country. These teachers are trained by teachers' colleges. Why can't they go back to the same teachers' colleges for the CPD? Why would they now go to universities if the training was done at Tamba Teachers Training College? If your training was done at Eregi, why would you now be qualified to why would they force you to go to university for CPD? CPD only takes 2 weeks. Mr. Speaker, finally, whenever teachers suffer, Mr. Speaker, our children suffer. When the teacher's welfare is not handled well, Mr. Speaker, they'll just go to school and not do anything. So, TSC, I think, is messing up here. They should bring their act together, promote more consultations, but above all, avoid hubris. So, Speaker, I want to request the committee, because they believe that, the TSC believes that they can always get their way in that committee. Let that committee put its feet down and decide that on this matter, Mr. Speaker, they will not listen to hubris. Thank you.
Member for Taita Taveta.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the onset, I also want to support the petition. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, even me, I have had this outcry by the teachers on the same, before they came up to this decision.
And proper payment. But what TSC is doing is not continuous capacity building. This is under course number 151 of 2018, rendered by Justice Baira Mongaya. And it stated very clearly that TSC is not a parliament to make laws and implement. And therefore, there ought to be regulations that against the Statutory Instruments Act of 2013. And the committee should put its feet down and stop TSC from progressing with the program. Finally, Mr. Speaker, there is need
in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2019 and the certificates therein, Pia North and Tetu constituencies. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Chairman, Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee.
Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Kaluma, you didn't have another one on Kenya National Commission on Human Rights? Do you have Chairman.
September 28, 2021. One, the report of the Departmental Committee on Health on its consideration of one, the Health Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 28 of 2020, and two, the Health Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2021. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Vice Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare, Honorable Koski.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 28 September 2021. Report on the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on its consideration of the Institute of Social Work Professionals Bill number 31 of 2020.
The Chairperson, Select Committee on Implementation, Honorable Olekenta. You don't have a card? Intervention, just please press the intervention button.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. The third report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the submissions from stakeholders regarding implementation status of inquiries, petitions, and resolutions passed by the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, number 40 of 2020 by CIOC. Honorable Speaker, you remember during the special sitting that we had last month, the member for Garissa on a point of order sought for your considered opinion. And it may take you some time to give us your considered view, but I was just appealing that you do guide the House before we get to consider what the Honorable Kaluma may want the House to consider and his committee.
That is coming soon, but the bill, whatever it is that is happening, the report and others, the processes continue. If it is determined that they should be taken to sender, it will be an easy exercise of RTS. But for the time being,
I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House approves the ratification of 1, the bilateral air service agreement between the Republic of Kenya and the Republic of South Africa, and 2, the bilateral air service agreement between the Republic of Kenya and the Republic of Botswana. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Olekenta.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the third report of the committee. I wish to give the notice of the following motion: that aware that the Basic Education Act adopted in 2013 guarantees the implementation of the right to free and compulsory basic education as provided for in Article 30. Further concerned that this fundamental omission in capitation exposes hundreds of thousands of school-going orphans and other vulnerable groups of learners to the adverse effects of hunger leading to death, early marriages, school dropout, and high rates of truancy. Considering that with the outbreak of COVID-19 virus, the income level of households has gone down through massive loss of jobs and opportunities, and the virus, Kenya shillings 2,000 for medical insurance, Kenya shillings 1,500 for activity, Kenya shillings 200 for SMASE, Kenya shillings 5,000 for maintenance and improvement, and Kenya shillings 9,400 for LT&T admin. Does not include a vote head for school feeding program. This House urges the government to enhance the primary and secondary capitation per learner in order to cater for feeding program for learners across the country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question is by the member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Simba Arati, King James. Honorable Simba Arati occasionally refers to himself as King James.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask a question 343 of 20 city, county. 3, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary indicate when the ministry plans to resolve land dispute on the parcels of land occupied by the said public institution? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Next question is by the member for Masinga, the Honorable Mwalia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to ask the question to causing harm on people, destroying crops, causing massive losses to the small-scale farmers along Tana River. Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a detailed list of the number of reported cases in the area for the last 10 years, including deaths and the status of compensation claims? Number 3, could the ministry ensure that claims for compensation as a result of human life conflict in the said area are settled promptly?
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question is by the member for Kaspur, the Honorable Charles Were.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to ask question number 368, directed to Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. Roman 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary confirm whether environmental impact assessment was carried out prior to the launching of the quarry mining activities by China City Construction Company with respect to the quarry activities taking place at Kakech village in Kasipul constituency, and houses have developed cracks on floors and walls? Roman 3, what action is the ministry taking against company for the resultant noise, pollution, and traumas, particularly at Kakech and Katanga village? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question is by nominated member Wilson Sossion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 370 of 2021, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide from the Director of Pensions to the Office of the Public Trustee in Eldoret of 28th February 2020, a letter indicating that a check of Kenya shillings 335,597 shillings and 15 cents had been released? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary
is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Honorable Speaker, what action is the government taking against police and administrative officers, in particular chiefs and assistant chiefs, who condone production
and national security? Next segment is about statements. Is a request for statement by the Honorable John Mutunga again.
Thank you. Of identity cards to the Tigania West residents. Honorable Speaker, Tigania West sub-county was hived of national identity cards. The cards normally indicate Igembe South or Igembe Central as the sub-county. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that there is no relationship between Tigania West and those other sub-counties to occasion such misinterpretation of facts. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek for a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. In the statement, the chairperson should address the following questions. What is the basis for indicating in the national identity cards that Tigania West sub-county residents are from or belong to Igembe South sub-county, which is a misinterpretation of facts, misrepresentation of facts? Secondly, what action or actions is the ministry taking to address this anomaly?
Very well. I can see you nod. Next order.
Order number 8, the draft election campaign financing regulations, question to be put.
Honorable Mbandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just before you put the question on this matter, Mr. Speaker, which matter touches on regulations that were forwarded to this House and the Treasury for interfering with the work of IEBC and with the possibility, but they were only allocated 26 billion in the budget. The other issue that by IEBC itself, there is no any other legislative proposal that is supposed to help have a credible election next year that this House is sitting on. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, and if you look at even analysis of various opinion leaders, they think Parliament is probably interfering with the work or making the work of IEBC difficult. And Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that we cannot just let go. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm standing here to seek for your intervention to have the Oversight Committee of this House, which is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, to intervene and invite the leadership of IEBC to be clear so that IEBC can tell us clearly acts that this House, the committee that is responsible for oversighting IEBC, then this is a matter that can be discussed even with the Treasury. Let the Treasury also be invited, and so that we are clear that IEBC has no excuse at all. We don't want excuses, Mr. Speaker. And I can see already, chances are that if we just keep quiet, chances are that IEBC is going to have excuses again for conducting sham election next year, which I'm sure this House is not ready for, and this country certainly would not be ready for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any piece of legislation touching on IEBC which is pending. We've discussed with them everything that has come up, including legislative proposals, but they have not brought any bills that have been tabled here and are pending. From the delegated legislation, the last to come is what we are dealing with this afternoon. There may be some truth that they've not received all the money, but I believe they are going to get the money. And if they do not get the money, then they should come to this House, which is the budgeting house in Kenya, and we are able to speak to Treasury. They get the money they need, because next year's elections must be credible, must be verifiable, and must be to the excellent standards that every Kenyan actually wishes. Therefore, I do agree this is a matter of national importance. IEBC must come out clearly and let us know what it is they are saying is pending. Thank you.
I can see Honorable Wamalo wants to say something in defense of IEBC.
Mr. Speaker, on this matter, it is a very fundamental matter for any responsible Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. It is true what Honorable Badi said. It was very alarming. I'm saying this because, Mr. Speaker, last time during the general election, the coverage was about 70% or so. And in terms of preparedness, because the law is clear in terms of the transmission of the results, the Communication Authority also need to tell the Kenyans to what extent is the 3G coverage, Mr. Speaker. Disappointed, Mr. Speaker, when I did a follow-up, we were told they're only going to have enhanced because Kenyans really want free, fair.
To report, Honorable Speaker, that I know from insider information within the committee that there is an intent to meet IEBC possibly within this week with your permission, Mr. Speaker, so that the House can be duly updated and the House can be, well guided in terms of the preparations we are having instead of hearing those things we are hearing out there. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kisang, you want to say something about 3G?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wanted to say something on 3G and also before 3G. I'm wondering why IEBC must wait for 4 years to, and then on 3G, Honorable Speaker, we were yesterday with Communication Authority. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, there are many parts of the country that don't have 3G. And soon we we have told CA to give us a report, and I believe in the
Legal Affairs Committee invite the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission to a meeting to discuss, among other things, just like happened in 2016, their levels of preparedness for the general election of 2022, whether there are financing needs and technical issues like what has been described as inadequate coverage of 3G and such like. But all aspects of the elections, I think, so that the committee, through the committee, the House, and indeed the country, will then get to know and understand where it is that the IEBC is, instead of making those alarming statements out there in the villages. And because those have the effect of reducing the levels of confidence Kenyans will have in the body. So I think the Honorable Kaluma, Honorable, so Tuesday it is the IEBC to come and discuss with the committee, among others, those issues of preparedness and the issues they are talking about, inadequate funding and all others. The committee will be at liberty, of course, depending on what they will be told, to further invite the Communications Authority of Kenya, should the need, should you find the need to do so. So move to the next. Somebody has whispered that the member for Odaya looks like the member for